Hello again everyone, Mary Rose here at Stitch Bliss Corner on Friday the 22nd of May 2020. I hope everyone is getting along okay and that things are not too bad in your life at the moment, as we all just continue to take each day one day at a time, which is probably the best way to do that anyway, isn't it? Just, I think it was Anne of Green Gables. What did she say? Each day's a fresh day with no mistakes in it. Before she started, anyway. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is show you what I've been very excited about, my new start, which I haven't started yet, but I will be starting tomorrow morning, I've decided. Because I wanted to share it with everyone before I started. Now also, what I'm going to do is show you the picture that captured me, and then I'm going to go through the process of taking it from the picture to the chart. Not the actual technical side of it, because Harlequin's done that. I'll get into that afterwards anyway. But for those of you who've been watching my progress on Across the Divide, Mystic Stitch, I'll just do an update on that for you. Because this one, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do, whether I'm going to do 3 weeks on the new one I'm doing, and then the next week just do a week of Across the Divide, just to keep my momentum going with it, because I think one of the reasons why I don't like leaving pieces is it takes you a day or so to get your head back reorientated with everything, and to me that's a day wasted, because I'm all about streamlining stitching. I mean, I've noticed that people have said, oh, you're a fast stitcher and all this sort of thing. And, but I do have more time than most to stitch, but I think the reason for the speed of my stitching, if you want to call it that, is the preparation that I do before I start. That streamlines everything. It's like when you're cooking, those cooking shows. They don't show the person usually, they don't show the person going out buying everything, bringing it back to the kitchen, taking everything out of the packages from the supermarket, cutting everything up. It's mostly things they've prepared. This is what I prepared earlier, is their usual expression on those cooking shows, because they want to expedite things. And the product at the end is just as good as, when hours are taken to prepare something, they condense it down in time. And that's what I like to do, because I like to get my stitching done. If I see a picture that I really like, I want to see it on the wall or complete it. I don't want to see it sitting there for days waiting to be picked up again. But that's me, Some people, they get bored. They might do a day of stitching one piece and they don't want to see it again for another month, so they're happy to go on to the next one. So I'm not criticizing anyone for the way they stitch. Everybody stitches a certain way, but I'm just letting you know that that's probably why it looks like I'm a faster stitcher. There's the fact that I do have more time at my disposal, that's true. Not as much as maybe people think I do, but I do have. and the fact that, as I say, that I prepare everything, because I can't be asked to be counting. Some people, I don't know how they do it. They must sit there and concentrate, especially on full coverage. They must be there counting. And you say, well, you go page by page. But I don't know how they don't lose themselves without the gridding, because you know, there are colours that look very similar to each other for you. Anyway, whatever they do, I mean, I don't want to be doing something that takes my complete concentration all the time. If I've gridded, I know that I can just put it down and pick it up, and I know where I am. I can watch TV and I can have a conversation with someone and still keep stitching. So, you know, what's to not like about that? Anyway, so here's the picture of my blabbing. So this is as far as I've got. I've got these cliffs in here, or, you know, the sides of the gorge or whatever it may be. Now, if you see there, that is full cross, two threads full cross, but this is single thread full cross. And can you see that makes that look further in the distance? This is 2 thread full cross, and it looks closer to you. So that's what I've been doing there. And across this side, same thing. That's all single thread full cross. And of course, if you are going to be doing that, you can take into account that you won't need as many skeins of floss as you would if you were doing the 2 threads. So just take that into account if you're thinking of doing the single thread full cross for your background. You might have enough threads without having to buy any more. That's just one of the side effects, if you will, of doing the single thread full cross. And the thing is, as you see here close up, I don't even think you can see it, but you might see the occasional bit of white in the background there, but from a distance you can't see that. And it really comes into its own in the distance. You can see the perspective coming in, because I do like a bit of perspective, I have to say. Right, so that's brought you up to date with that one. And now we will go on to the piece that I'm going to start. Now, it's by an artist called Mark Missman, and I'd never heard of him before. I was going along, minding my own business, when this image came on the internet, and I thought, my goodness, who painted that? And it turned out it was this man here, Mark Missman. And he's an American. He's a modern realist, is how they describe him. Let me have a look here. I just wrote just a few things down about him. He was born in Des Moines, Iowa in 1947. He entered a monastery in California in search of spiritual enlightenment and spent 18 years of his life serving as a monk. After his early morning meditations, he spent hours creating drawings, paintings and murals for the monastery. He attended various art schools, and a lot of people have bought his work, from famous to non-famous people. And I shall now show you a picture. As I say, I saw this on the internet. Now, there are images in your life that speak to your soul. And this one spoke to mine. It's called Be Still, My Soul, actually. And Scout up here, that I had to stitch that. Harlequin, which I shall show you in a minute again, because I want to speak about the thread count. I had to stitch that. And this one, I just have to stitch. Now, the problem presented itself that although the image was on the internet and you could theoretically take that off the internet and stitch it. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to pay for the image before we made it into a cross stitch for us, for me. Excuse me. So I went about finding out how I could buy an image, which I bought this one. So they're not very expensive at all. I think this was about $15 American. And it's just, I mean, you know, I just love the way he's looking down. I love the way the sea breeze has caught his robes, the movement of the waves, the sky, just everything. I think it's just nice that there isn't the full face, you know, it's just, he's looking down, and it's just so lovely. So that was what captured me and has caught me ever since. So the first thing to do, if you're, and we'll link the computer program Harlequin used below, because I know with Harlequin, the Mardi Gras, people did ask about what program it was. So he'll certainly link that down below for you. So anyway, then you go about, he gets like scans the picture, the original picture, and then he has to put in the size that you want and what thread count you're going to be using. And now the size, usually I have it the size it needs to be to give me enough detail, because the smaller a piece is, unless it's a dimensions petite, and they seem to be able to put a huge amount of detail into a very small area. But when it comes to this particular program anyway, you have to have a certain size in order to give you the image that you want. Then you have to pick how many colours. But we had a look at, and we found that 150 was about right, 150 different colours, because there wasn't much difference between 150 and 170 or more. So that's what we decided on. So then, once you've done that, then you can go about adjusting your colours on the program to be as close to the original as possible. The computer does most of it anyway, but you just might need to do a little bit of tweaking to your own liking. So this here, he printed out 18 count, what it would look like 18 count and 20 count, because I wasn't sure which count I would use, because for full coverage I like to use Ada because it's a very strong fabric. I've used 28 count for a full coverage, and I found that it slipped around a little bit. It was great for the fine detail of the face, and that's why I used the 28 count, because there is a lot of focus on the face. But for every other full coverage I've used 18 count. Harlequin, which I'll show you, I used 20 count for that, but I did come across a slight problem with that, which I'll tell you about soon. Anyway, this one here, this is the 18 count image. Now, the colour there, the way the printer's printed it, is not, we believe anyway, it won't be that colour when it comes out. It's just the way the printer has printed, because if you see, the original is a different, it's got different tones and everything. So that's the 18 count, and this is the 20 count. So I'll see if I can just put them side by side so you can have a bit of a look at the comparison there. But you can, I think you should be able to see that the 20 count gives more feeling of fine detail. It does, only slightly. So with Harlequin, which I shall show you now. Try and get that light out if I can. That's on 20 count, which is great for the faces. You can see the detail in the faces is very good, and the hands and everything. Now, the only problem that I came up against was, because it's a smaller count, 2 threads over 1 made it quite thick. So, I mean, it was almost like upholstery by the time I'd finished. You could nearly stand it up, which, you know, you can't tell looking at the picture there, but that's what it was like anyway. But I don't think that I'll have this problem with this 20 count, with this particular image, because I'm going to do the background in single thread full cross, and I think the 20 count will be great for that because it'll cover it really nicely. So all the background will be the 20 count. I don't really know what's going to happen in the foreground though. It may well be that as I come further forward I'll go into the full cross, at least here in the front. And I must say too that it's an indication of the modesty of this man. There's his signature there, and you can barely make it out. Mark Missman. How modest that man is. And he also, he has a little quote about how he sees art. I'll just read it to you, just while I'm thinking of it. He says, "To me, art is an expression of the rapture of being, unveiling a fragment of the radiance within all form. I believe that art can awaken the soul to the timeless presence of beauty and truth." So, he certainly knows how to manifest his thoughts into an image. That is for sure and certain. And I'm so grateful to him and the gift that he was given, that he could create something that I would want to stitch so very much. So thank you, Mark. And so anyway, once you've got your image onto the computer, it then goes about creating the chart for you. Now, there are different kinds of charts. You know, you can either have, I'll just do that now. Black and white, like that. That's part of the chart there. You can have black and white if you wish, and I usually go for the black and white because it suits me better. Or you can have the colour, and some people prefer that. So he printed me off a couple of different, charts so that I could pick which one I wanted. And also, he was able to download onto my iPad as well, so that if I want to look at the image or part of the chart on the iPad, I can do that as well. So all bases are covered. So that's the chart, and I'll show you later on, I'll just show you the full chart all stuck together, because I do like to stick my chart together so it's all complete, and then I put it on my sloping desk that I have here and anchor it all down, and away I go. I always start in the middle, as you know. I usually start in the middle and work up and then come down and finish at the bottom there. So, right, so the next part of the program, now here's the details there. He's put fabric there, 8 or 20 count, white, 240 stitches wide, 298 stitches high, and 30 by 48 centimetres by 37.85 centimetres. It's about 12 by 15, something like that. So there's all the symbols down the side, and they put the colour palette too. So you can check and make sure that the colour that you have matches close enough anyway, to the palette, which is very handy because I have this great propensity for transposing numbers. Most people know by now that I'm hopeless with counting and numbers. That's why I'm a gridder. Well, partly why. And because I can see 3799 and think it's 3977. So it's very handy for me because I would know that they were different colours, and I'd do a double take and realise that I'd picked the wrong skein or whatever. So that's that part of it. Then sorry, I've just got to get the bit. I always manage to mislay something. Oh, it's over here, that's why. Yeah, and then it tells you all the skeins that you need. So I've got 150, and the number of stitches of each colour that's required. And of course, for some of those, there'll be less because I'm doing the single thread for the background. So I might have enough anyway, I just don't know. So here are all the colours, just to show you what I do to prepare for a full coverage. I put all the colours onto cards, from the smallest to the largest number. And in this case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 altogether. Now that looks like a big mess. It is a big mess, but it doesn't really matter because that's not what I'll be using on a day-to-day basis with my stitching. I've put them all separately again. From the bank, I've put the deposits, and the deposits are just one single thread, or a single thread from the skein, which is 6 threads, and I'll just be using those. And as one gets used up, I'll just replace it from the bank. I must apologise for my gruff throat today. It's just when the weather turns cold, it must freeze my vocal cords, which is something that Harlequin probably thinks is a good thing, but it's not so good for Flosstube. So yeah. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 25 each one. I thought that made it a lot easier. So there's the 150 threads there. And then we come to the fabric. Now, as I was saying, I was thinking of the 18 count. And there's 18 count, which looks absolutely massive here on the iPad. But it's not. It's pretty small count. It looks almost like 14 count there. But it isn't. It comes out quite fine. Scout's on 18 count, and sometimes I look at it and I can't believe it is 18 count because it looks so small. But anyway, I don't know if you lose, maybe the stitch, pulls the Ada a little bit and makes it smaller. I don't know. That's got me tossed, actually, how that happens. But anyway. And here is the 20 count that I have ready to... Oh, wrong side. Well, that's what it looks like at the back anyway, my gridding. But see, if what puts you off gridding, not that it's putting you off. I mean, some people are quite happy to grid. I'm not talking about I'm just saying for those who are reluctant to give it a go. They do have pens now that you can just mark your grids with that, and it washes out, as far as I know. I mean, I've had no experience with them. I mean, well, that's not quite true, because Harlequin, he bought me about 3 different styles of pen, and one you can actually erase the pen if you make a mistake. The other end you can use, and it's like a rubber. It's a solution there. But I'm just a bit concerned in case it doesn't wash out or something, or it does something. So I'm a bit nervous of things like that, because I know with the thread I can just pull it out and there's no problem there. But however, I have seen people who have got their grids like that, and they've never said, oh, I did this wonderful full coverage, and then when I finished it I washed it and look what happened. I haven't seen anybody do that yet anyway. Thank goodness, because that would be just appalling. But I suppose you could try it on a small piece and wash it and see what happens, and then maybe you'd have more confidence then for the larger piece. It's probably what I should do, but can't teach old dogs new tricks. So that's just the way it goes. Anyway, I do enjoy my gridding, so there you go. So there's the piece ready to go. So I'll be starting that tomorrow morning, because I thought, well, I'll just do a little bit more on across the divide and probably tie off the threads so it's all clean and fresh when I go back to it. But as I say, I think I'll probably look in on that anyway after 3 weeks and just do at least a week on it. But it depends. See, I think that's the thing. You get engrossed in something and you don't want to stop doing it. And I'm one of those people that thinks if you don't want to stop, well, don't stop. Just keep going. I mean, who cares if your other whip's due that day or that hour or whatever it might be according to the schedule. If you're happy and you're joyful and it's giving you great satisfaction, maybe some people think it's a good time to put it down, because then you're really looking forward to picking it up again. I suppose there's that side of things. So there's always another side to whatever opinion someone's got, isn't there? I know that some of those soap operas that I used to watch a long time ago when the children were very small. And there's that phenomenon where you would really, really dislike a character because of how the script was written. And then somehow or other, they would mess up your mind enough that you either sympathised with the character or you ended up liking them after, a month or so with how the script changed. So I think, well, how did that happen? I just didn't like that person, and now all of a sudden, I think they're all right. That's manipulation, really, isn't it? I suppose that's what keeps people coming back for more. But not in my case. Once the children were older, and I could sort of do other things, I did other things. So anyway, here's the chart that I've glued together. So there he is. And I am very much looking forward to tomorrow morning, where I can line everything up, get the gimbals right. I don't know did anyone ever watch Apollo 13? And Tom Hanks was sitting there in the space capsules, and they were about to lift off from it was Cape Canaveral, then it became Cape Kennedy, and I don't know if it went back to being Cape Canaveral or not, but anyway, they were taking off, and he was looking at all the instruments and saying, our gimbals are good. So that's what we say sometimes around the household, oh, the gimbals are good for this. So I want to get all my gimbals right for tomorrow morning. So I may well prepare the area before I go to bed tonight, ready for that fresh new stitch tomorrow morning. And I have every intention. What I was thinking is I will take a still every evening of the progress. And I was thinking what I would do is on my next update, I will show like an edited, not every single day, but maybe at the end for people who are curious, I might do the full one then, but I'll give a warning because it'll probably take quite a while for it to run through. Because, you vary in how much you do in a day. If there's a lot of confetti, there's very little progress. But if there are areas that haven't got as much confetti, well, everybody knows you go a lot quicker, I think that's why, how some of these dimensions, the reason why they're can be easier are the bigger ones. The old ones, not so much the modern ones. I think the modern ones, they probably have as much confetti as anybody else, but the earlier ones anyway, the image would be given to someone who was had knowledge of stitching, and they would take out, shall we say, a certain amount of the unnecessary confetti that would still give a really good image. That's a real skill to be able to do that. Of course, the computer doesn't know any better. It's going to just give you exactly what you've put in there. It can't. I suppose if you reduce your size, probably the computer then would have to adjust to make it smaller, and there would be less detail in it. So I suppose in that regard it can cope with it. But anyway, that's a few of my musings. I had a wonderful Mother's Day. I hope everyone else did too. It was excellent. I was utterly indulged. Got my favourite food from our favourite Chinese restaurant. One of my sons got me a cross-stitch magazine, which I was amazed by. That was so nice of him to do that. And, all my gifts were just exactly what I would like to have, so that was just wonderful. And I hope the same for everyone else. I find it amusing how, at least at my children's school, the teachers, when I used to go and help in the classroom, they'd say things like, your mothers do so much for you and they never complain. And I used to think, I do. I was always snarking about something. And I thought, who are these mothers that are so perfect that they never complain about anything? At least my children put their hands up and say, well, hang on a minute, my mother's not like that. Which mother are you talking about? But, you've got to be yourself, haven't you? That's the point. As a parent and as a mother, it's no use putting on a show of being this all, earth mother kind of person if you're not like that. You've got to be yourself at home, and your children, to a degree, have to feel comfortable in their own skin as well. And I think that's the thing, the child needs to know that you're the parent, and there always is that line there. My children are still very respectful to me because I'm their mother, and that's as it should be. You're not their best friend, you're their mother. And I think that's the problem with some children now. I think they're stressed out. And I think they're stressed out because they have too much choice. Their parents, for some reason, want them to have all this free choice. And that's a lot of stress on a child. I used to say with my children, or my daughter anyway, she used to be the one most interested in what she was going to be wearing that day. And I would say, well, you can have this one or this one. Which one do you want? Not, oh, go to your wardrobe and find something to wear. That's too much for a child. How are they going to make that decision? If you bring it down to what you think is suitable, and you just say, well, this one or this one, which one? It's a lot easier for them to cope with that. You're still letting them make a choice, aren't you? It's just that, you're just making that choice a bit easier. And same with a lot of different things. Do you want to go to the shops this morning, or well, I never used to say that, actually. I didn't ask them if they wanted to do anything like that. We were going and that was it. I was the mother, and if we had to go to the shop, well, off we went. So I didn't ever give them choices like that. But just, them as a person, they did get choices, but it was one or the other. And I found that they were all, seemed to be anyway, pretty happy and content with their lot in life. And I mean, my daughter now, she's my best friend, but I'm still her mother. She's still got that little line of respect, which is just wonderful. You can't, you need to nurture that as a young, I would say with young mothers. I used to have a routine with my children for bedtime. And after tea, start winding down. And they would have their bath, they would have their story, and they would go to sleep. That was it. Always have a bedtime story. And, that went for quite some time. And I can remember my son, how old was he? Because he read very early in life. Well, all my children did, because they were read to. And I found with some of the books, even the little golden books, when my daughter was very young, if you tried to skip over something, she'd say, no, and she'd wind back the page. No, you've missed something there. You know how some of those little golden books, anyway, but a lot of books, children's books, they're a bit repetitive. And, when you've read them 30 times, you just think, they always notice. So I think that's enough of my carryings on for one day. Thank you so much if you've lasted this long. And I will get back to you when I have got some progress on my beautiful piece that I can hardly wait to get started. It's just, there aren't words for it, really. I mean, even if you're not that way inclined, I think the skill of the artistry and the beauty of the actual scene, which gives such a serenity to anyone who looks at it. You get that serenity feeling, that calm, that reassurance that all is well, that all will be well. And I wish you well. And so, goodbye for now, from Mary Rose.